Well, welcome to the first show of the second season. Obviously, first season was a little short, but hopefully this second season will be longer and more frequent. This is Super Secret HQ. My name is Josh Lagurn. I am the host of the show, and today I am joined by two lovely co-hosts, people that I have interacted with before and done podcasts with before, and have been my colleagues. Starting with Katie Rentschler from Star Wars Alliance. Katie and I are former colleagues at Revenge of the Fans, and now we are here talking on this podcast. This is actually the first time, Katie, that we have met face to face. So
yes,
so nice to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm a co-host of Star Wars Alliance, like you said. That podcast you can find on Twitter. I'm just going to go ahead and throw these out there. Sorry. It's at Star Wars Alliance at the 8 and the Wars. I also host a film review podcast that will be coming back in April. It's on a bit of a hiatus right now, but that is Slice of Film 1, and me and a co-host just go over a film. So, yeah, great to be here. Cheers.
That's awesome. Cheers. And it's worth checking out, by the way. It is worth checking out. Katie is great at what she does. And I'm also joined by my pal, a guy who's been a guest before in a larger format, but and I've been a guest on his show, JJ Hodges from 4 Comics Junkies. JJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me back. I'm excited to be here. You all did a cheers, and I went to scratch my eyebrow, so I probably look like an idiot in front of everybody. But cheers that time.
Cheers. Cheers.
There we go. So I'm excited to be here and talk some Star Wars, I always feel like as I look immediately, the first thing I saw was Katie's A New Hope poster. So
yes.
I've lived in this house for a while now, and I got nothing on my walls. But This
is an OG special edition New Hope theatrical
1997. I remember going to that showing.
Yeah, same.
I was 2 years old.
Well, there you go.
Good gravy, man. Where'd you find this one?
I remember, and I loved the special editions. I thought all the visual effects that all the OG fans hated, I was like, those are so cool. And obviously now I look at them and I think they're a bit random. But, it's all good. I appreciate George Lucas's love of technology. I can relate to it. So today we are going to talk about the latest Star Wars entry into the Star Wars canon, the Book of Boba Fett. This is created by Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Robert Rodriguez. And we're gonna get talking about that. But before we do, we have a special topic for our Into the Twitterverse section, and it is the Oscar nominations. The Oscar nominations came in on Tuesday, early Tuesday morning, and there were several surprises, several nodding along like, yes, of course, these are the Oscar nominations, and several others. So just want to get a quick feel from Katie. What did you think of the? Did any nominations stick out to you? We're not gonna sit on this for too long. But did you have a favorite nomination? Did you have a nomination that made you gasp in horror? What were your impressions of the Oscar nominations?
So I'm going to be honest. You told me to do my homework. And I have a post from Full Circle Cinema, the site I write for now, up in front of me that has all the nominations up in front of them. And I don't pay attention to the Oscars at all. Like, sometimes I look at the monologue from the host like days later, and it's like, oh, okay, that was kind of funny. But award shows have never been my jam. For Best Picture, I've only seen Don't Look Up, which I have absolutely no idea why that's in there. That was a terrible movie. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. And Nightmare Alley, which was good. You should check that out if you have not seen it. All the others I haven't seen. Looking through the rest of them, most of these movies I haven't seen. The one thing I will say is Tick, Tick, Boom should have been Netflix's nomination for Best Picture instead of Don't Look Up. That is a world's better movie. Andrew Garfield gives the performance of his life in that, and he is nominated for Best Actor. So that was at least a yay. But other than that, no, I have no game in this. Oscar Academy Award winning has never been my jam. So
Yeah, that's cool. Are there any films on there that you're interested in seeing among the Best Picture nominees? Now that you have it pulled up.
I have seen Dune. I'm sorry, I forgot Dune was on this list. So there's 3 I've seen, which is like more than usual. Probably the only one is Coda, because I've heard that is very good, and it's on Apple Plus, not Apple Pictures. But that's the only one really. None of these others have really met my attention. Licorice Pizza, with its like weird age gap romance with the teacher and the student, it's like no.
My gosh, but I really want to see that film. Bradley Cooper just looks insane in that film, and I want to see it. He's playing John Peters, who of course is the producer of Batman 1989. Of course, a lot of people will know the story of John Peters and Kevin Smith making Superman Lives, and all of Kevin Smith's wild stories about John Peters. And what an insane career. I mean, he started as Barbara Streisand's hairdresser, started dating her, and then became a film producer. So it's a wild, wild story. But obviously that's not the main story of Licorice Pizza. There's the other story as well. But yeah, I think JJ, you were nodding along with Katie. Did you have any thoughts on that, on the Oscar nominations?
Only that I don't think I've seen. I don't. This is par for the course for me. I haven't seen any of the movies, and I don't know. Well, but I think also, to be fair, it's been a weird couple of years, right? So, we're only going to the movie theater if we really want to, and like for example, I love Jimmy Kimmel saying that. Spider-Man No Way Home was a much better film than Don't Look Up. Why didn't that get nominated?
Was.
So it's like I haven't seen Don't Look Up, but I've heard bad things, which is unfortunate because I thought it looked really good. But as these things go,
I gave Spider-Man a 2 out of 5, and I still think Don't Look Up is a worse movie than Spider-Man No Way Home.
Wow, that is a hot take, Katie.
Yeah,
we need to explore that a little bit further another time. But that is a hot take that I'm sure Nico Caruso is out there somewhere pulling his hair out in frustration at that take.
But is it as a hot take as my Daredevil Netflix show sucks? That is
wow.
Whoa, that is another hot take.
Is there a way to?
Wow.
I don't think it's gonna work out with her. I just
don't. Yeah. No. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say. I totally agreed with Katie though about Andrew Garfield. He totally deserves the nomination. I hope he gets the win. And that movie should have been nominated as well. I'm surprised it wasn't. I don't think it got. I think it got one other technical award nomination, but like it was largely looked over except for Andrew Garfield, which I guess if it were to get any of them, I'm glad it got that one. But yeah, most of the nominations, like you expect to see like Spider-Man and Shang-Chi and like the visual effects awards and blah blah blah. It's just I'm just at the point now where I'm like, I'm tired of comic book movies being looked over anyway, and but I do get excited when I see like the animated movies, like the Mitchells versus the Machines. I thought was awesome. It was fun. It's one of those, my ex and I were watching with our 2-year-old daughter, and we're like laughing our butts off the whole movie, and she could care less. And I'm like, I feel like this has been a trend. We watched Soul with her. We watched, Mitchell's versus the Machines, and we were way more into it than she was. Still haven't seen Luca or Encanto though, so I'm behind on those.
Encanto, oh my gosh, so good.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Just for reference, the Tick Tick Boom additional Oscar is for nomination is for Best Film Editing. So
interesting.
I'll give it that because I do think it was. I don't know. I guess if I think of editing, I think of pacing, and I think that movie was very well paced.
Yep.
I still haven't seen Dune, much to probably the chagrin of most of our geek friends out there.
Oh my gosh,
But
JJ, what are you doing with your life?
I know, and I have HBO Max too, but I have.
Oh gosh, so good.
That shocked a lot of people on Twitter. Sorry, that Dennis was not nominated for Best Director. So
Yes,
track
it
record,
sure
I
did.
would agree that even having not seen the movie, I think he deserved it.
Yeah, I'm just tweeting we're live. I just realized I forgot to tweet that we're live. Yeah, I agree with most of your takes. Katie's abomination of a Spider-Man take notwithstanding. No, I agree. Don't Look Up is probably one of the worst Best Picture nominations in quite some time. It was not very good. And I remember I read an article from like an Oscar insider, and they said something very interesting that that this Oscar insider, I think it's a she, thought that a lot of these people in the Academy don't watch these films. And if you think about it, like I've only watched 4 of the films. I've watched Dune. I've watched West Side Story. Um, oh gosh, Nightmare Alley, and I can't think of the 4th one that I watched, but I watched 4 of them, and so I have 6 to go, and like I'm not a Hollywood producer, I'm not a Hollywood director, I'm not an actor. You know what I mean? Like I have a pretty light schedule compared to a lot of these people in some senses. And so the idea that a lot of these people would be watching all of the films is probably not necessarily realistic. And the interesting thing this person said is they look at the name of the film, they look at who's in it, and they look at who directed it, and that's how they nominate these films. And that's what this feels like. This feels like this is Adam McKay directing a film, a political satire starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence. Sorry, that's my dog. And Bruce, shush. Hey, stop it. Sorry about that. Leonardo DiCaprio, Jonah Hill, and Meryl Streep. So, these people probably thought this movie's probably great. So I think that there's some truth to that. I'm really glad to see Dune on there. It doesn't surprise me that it was nominated for Best Picture. It's a beautifully crafted film, but Denis Villeneuve deserved a Best Director nomination.
Yep.
I mean, the idea, I don't know if you guys have tried to read Dune before, but getting through that
terrible
book, it is so dense and it's hard and everything is so descriptive. And the fact that he took that book and turned it into a motion picture that is engaging and worth watching. And it's funny because like Dune influenced George Lucas, who made Star Wars, and then Star Wars has clearly influenced Dune. Like Denis Villeneuve is clearly influenced by Star Wars, even if he's going the opposite direction of a lot of what George Lucas did with the original Star Wars. So yeah, lots of really good stuff there. A film that I watched, I was glad to see that Javier Bardem, Nicole Kidman, and J.K. Simmons were nominated for Being the Ricardos. I wasn't too impressed by the film. I watched it. I'm glad it's not nominated for Best Picture. But I am glad that those performances were nominated because they were really good. So those are my thoughts on the Oscars. 100% agree about Andrew Garfield as well. That man is having the year of his life in his career. I mean, he's terrific in everything he's been in. I don't know if you guys saw The Eyes of Tammy Faye either, but he was terrific in that film. He's terrific in Spider-Man No Way Home. He's terrific in Tick, Tick, Boom. Deserves the nomination and just deserves like Lifetime Achievement Award in his late 30s for this year alone. I mean, he's so great and really did really, really well. So those are my thoughts on the Oscars. we'll move on to our main event, which is all about the Book of Boba Fett. Did you guys know that the theme song isn't just like hum ha or whatever? It's saying Boba Fett in the theme song. Found that out yesterday.
I think they overpronounced it for this last one.
Yeah.
Because I showed the tweet that was going around to Matt, and Matt was like, it's just this episode. And like he went back like several episodes, and so they over enunciated it in this one just to, I think, kind of like have that fun play on words type of thing.
Yeah.
It does still fit within the theme. It's just like most of it is like bum ba dum ba. So it just they did it this time. Real quick, because you said it, and y'all, I know it's Denny, I promise, but for some reason I just see the name and I'm just like, Dennis. So I'm sorry if I have offended any Denny. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name. Props to you, Josh, but I was just like, oh crap.
The French, you've offended the French, Katie, and
I'm sorry.
They're coming at you. They're gonna want you canceled over not pronouncing Denny with the proper French pronunciation. It's okay. I'm a Frenchman myself. Legern is my last name. It's Legern in the proper French. But my grandpa moved to England, and then my dad moved here. So that is why I say Legern, because we anglicized it. But no, I'm just all kidding aside. Yes.
That's why I wanted to apologize now.
Denny Villeneuve. So really quick, I just wanted to go around. This is going to be a spoiler-free section. We just spoiled Spider-Man No Way Home, by the way. Just realized that. Sorry. But this section of the show is going to be a spoiler-free section. So starting with JJ this time, I want to hear just your impressions of Book of Boba Fett and whether or not you think it's good and whether or not you recommend it. So we'll start with JJ.
I do think it's good. I don't think it's great. I didn't think it was anything like mind-blowing, but I found it enjoyable. Kind of like with The Mandalorian, I'm a little annoyed with like the random episode length, that every episode is completely different from the last in terms of length. I don't know why that bothers me, but it does a little bit. But but overall, I did enjoy it. I think at the end of the day, it's cool to have like some like live action validation that Boba Fett is a badass, that Boba Fett is cool. Whereas like, for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, it was just like, well, he's cool, but you got to read this, or you got to look at this extended canon stuff. And it's cool that Disney, made an effort to be like, let's show, not just tell, if that makes any sense.
There was nothing in the series though that compared to, and I don't think that this is that much of a spoiler, so it can be in the spoiler-free section. It's just an expectation setting, really. There's nothing in this series that compares to his entrance in armor on season 2 of The Mandalorian. That was so cool and so freaking epic.
Yeah, that was great.
And that was a Robert Rodriguez episode as well. But yeah, so overall you liked it.
Yeah.
I want to ask Katie the same question. Katie, what are your thoughts and what do you think about this series?
So I enjoyed it for what it was. I think definitely it cements Bryce Dallas Howard's legacy into who she is in Star Wars, and that they need to give her a show or a movie, something where she's got full control, because she does glorious work.
Yep.
And I know, well, that's a spoiler, so
we'll talk more about her episode in the spoiler section. But yes, I agree. Bryce Dallas Howard, amazing. Sorry to interrupt. Continue.
I think Steph Green's episode was phenomenal. Really touched on the emotion. All of this, while Boba Fett is an asshole. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
It's okay.
And that even wasn't where I was going for. I was like, badass is what I was trying to say. I don't know why that came out. And I am one of the people who loved him in Star Wars Legends and thought he was that guy and recommended everything because I thought he was such a great character in Star Wars Legends. So knowing who he was there and just being able to see a completely different character come to life in this show, I think was a really good choice by Robert Rodriguez as the showrunner, as well as Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, who Favreau wrote most of the episodes and produced along with Filoni. Favreau's scripts in this show are not as strong as the Mandalorian ones. It's a real weakness within the Book of Boba Fett, which I'm going to go ahead and preface the rest of this conversation by saying has always been put up as the Mandalorian season 2.5. The crew, when they were filming, did not know that it was the Book of Boba Fett until about 3 weeks into production. When they were like, why are we filming so much of this stuff? And I'm like, oh, well, it's the Book of Boba Fett. So for me, everyone can kind of complain about what we got in the middle, but it flows very well with the Mandoverse, as it has been deemed by a lot in the Twitter sphere. So I wasn't completely blown away like I was by Mandalorian season 1, but Mandalorian season 2 didn't blow me away. So I think this was very average. I think we're going to have to Star Wars has tried to be so selective with the stories it tells. And I think it has to be okay with telling average stories and giving you those perspectives that don't necessarily conquer the greatest epic of all time, because these are average day-to-day lives for these people. So, and sometimes that's okay. And sometimes it's nice to just be average versus, we have to tell the best story of all time, because your expectations are never going to be met if that's how you treat every Star Wars story. So
I totally agree with that.
Sorry, JJ, 1 second. I just have to jump in here really quick. These takes, Katie. Star Wars Mandalorian season 2 is not as good as Mandalorian season 1. Oh my gosh.
I run my own Star Wars podcast, so I'm allowed. You can still critique your favorite thing while still being a fan of it, and I think that's something that a lot of Star Wars fans have to accept. So, and we can
have other opinions too. I'm so sorry, JJ, for cutting you off. Go ahead.
Oh no. I was gonna say I totally agree with what you said, Katie, about it. It's okay that it's not mind blowing. And it's funny because I thought the same thing, that like I like it as something simpler to watch, if, for lack of a better word. And Star Wars has never, at least to me, been this like mind-bending psychological, like, wow, I feel like I learned something here, kind of a thing, which, it doesn't have to be, of course. But I think Star Wars fans can just be so like ridiculous to begin with, like not liking Spider-Man or Daredevil. I mean, they're crazy, No, I'm kidding. But
or thinking Mandalorian season 1 is better than Mandalorian season 2.
Well, I'll throw another one at you. One of my favorite Star Wars movies is Solo: A Star Wars Story. And it's because you can get enveloped in the universe for 2-ish hours and go, yeah, you know what? That was a good story. It put me in the Star Wars universe. It was a lot of fun, but I don't have to commit to watching a trilogy of movies. While I am a big Star Wars movie, and part of that reason is because of the movies, I don't enjoy a big movie binge. So if I want to watch a Star Wars movie, I want to be able to sit down and like watch 2 hours and be done. If I watch,
I don't think that's a weird take. I think Solo's quite a good Star Wars movie.
I'll take it one step further and say that I don't think that there's any bad Star Wars movie. I think all of them have something worthwhile in it. Even even the prequels, to their credit, I will always say, my best friend and I had this talk a long time ago, where the best part of those movies is Ewan McGregor. Like, he makes the journey from boy to man, and it's like flawless. And and I've been craving another Obi-Wan show. I know we're getting a little off topic here, sorry, but an Obi-Wan show for years, or a movie or whatever. And the fact that we're getting Hayden back as Darth Vader, I think is, I'm excited to see where they go with that. Even if he didn't give the greatest of performances, I chalk a lot of that up to needing a better director.
Yeah, it sounds like too. I mean, this is Ewan's kind of revealed it, but they're going to do some flashback scenes too.
Mm-hmm.
In Obi-Wan with Hayden and Ewan, which is great because it gives Hayden an opportunity. Hayden is actually a very good actor. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Shattered Glass. It's really, really, really well done, and Hayden gives an excellent performance in that film. He's a very good actor. I mean, much like Natalie Portman's a great actress too.
Yeah.
It's just George has never been a performances director. He's like all the actors he's worked with, like Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford. They all have stories of George, and there's that story that floats around that Carrie Fisher told where she did an accent with Princess Leia for like the first 4 scenes she filmed, and then George was like, "That accent you did, let's ditch it." And she's like, "But George, we'll have to go back and reshoot all those scenes." And he's like, "Let's not worry about it." So that's why Princess Leia has an accent in some scenes of the original Star Wars, and other scenes doesn't. But George Lucas is from the same town I grew up in. We're both from Modesto, California. So that's just how we roll in Modesto. We just go with the flow. You know what I mean? But overall, so Book of Boba Fett, to get back onto the conversation, very apropos that we moved on to talking about other things. But overall, I'd say, I'm pretty much on the same page with you guys. On balance, I enjoyed it. I think it's a good show. But obviously, there's some things about it that I felt like just didn't fire the way that I expected them to, and didn't exactly hold my interest in the same way. I also think, and we'll get more into this in the spoiler section of the show, but I think one of the things that Favreau and Filoni have to look out for is relying on the audience watching the animated series. Because as much as hardcore fans have watched the animated series, there's a lot of fans who have not. And so some things that were meant to hit really emotionally in this series didn't. And that's a perfect segue, because
to talk about Meilu runs.
We will talk about this is a spoiler section now of the show. So from here on out, if you have not watched Book of Boba Fett, stop the podcast, pause it, go back, watch it. From here on out, we're talking spoilers. We're spoiling the whole thing. So I'll get back to that point a little bit later about ties to the animated series. But what I want to do in this first section is talk about the fact that the strongest portions of the Book of Boba Fett did not feature the character of Boba Fett.
Yes.
Do we agree on that? If we disagree on that, that's fine. But that's kind of the consensus take that I've seen.
At least until the last episode, when I thought he finally got something cool to do, even if it's riding a Rancor, which I thought was just like, I just was watching it just going, that is so cool. Like, even if it's kind of weird, it's like, I didn't care. I was like, that the visual alone, which, Star Wars, I mean, how many, there's when we talk about Star Wars, obviously visuals are a big part of it. Look at the concept art that Ralph McQuarrie did that's been turned into action figures and books and Funko Pops. I have a couple of them somewhere, just seeing something that looks so darn cool and be like, yeah, awesome. I'm in. You know what I mean?
Boba loves riding animals, doesn't he? He loves animals. I think it's fair to say.
Like a
But-
bantha.
Like a bantha. Tamora Morrison, I just want to say Tamora Morrison has a lot of swagger. I appreciate that about that guy. Have no complaints about him.
I love the fact that he was able to come back into Star Wars and play a character that he didn't even play originally. It was so cool to see him just like kind of take this role and make it his own. He looked like he had a ton of fun with what he was doing. It just really impressive overall. Ming-Na Wen, love her. I hope we see more of her. That was one thing that I hoped in the finale that stuck in the finale for me was I was like, where is Ming-Na Wen? Like they were supposed to be co-stars, and then they got split up for like the last part of the season, and so it's like, so for me, the biggest portion, and there's a good thread by Alden Diaz. The username on Twitter is that Alden Diaz. He talked a lot about why Star Wars kind of did what it did, and it's honestly because I really enjoyed his take, because Boba Fett has had so many interactions with these characters over the years, even if they're in a split second, like with Luke Skywalker, and it's all telling a cohesive story for the Mandoverse. So to me, to get the Bryce Dallas Howard episode that was solely The Mandalorian and got all this history, yes, it would have been nice to get that within The Mandalorian. But again, like I said, Mandalorian season 2.5. Keep that in your mind, because that's what it was supposed to be.
Right.
And so we got all this rich history about Mandalore and about the Night of 1,000 Tears, and it was so cool to see. God, Emily Swallow, by the way, if you have not seen her in Supernatural, I think it's season 10, and then the last season she's in there. But she's a great actress. And so having the armor return was so cool. I loved every second of it. And seeing the Darksaber fight, especially with the member of the Vizsla clan, I was like, oh my gosh, this is everything. It's such a good episode, and it draws up such emotion. But what people seem to forget is that Boba Fett is a Mandalorian. And he proved it with his chain code in Mandalorian season 2. So it's like, okay, yes, this more relates to Din Djarin, but it also relates to Boba Fett, and it's telling a story of, okay, this is his culture. Even though Boba's a clone, he still is a Mandalorian. He was always registered as Jango Fett's son. So it's cool to see that history come up, and especially with like you're not a Mandalorian, bathe. If you want to come back, you have to bathe under the mines of Mandalore.
Katie, I think we've let's see.
Am I back?
You're back. You're back.
Okay. Where did you lose me?
We lost you at the Bods of Mon, or what is it?
Bathing in the mines.
Bathing in the
JJ,
waters under the mines of Mandalore.
Hey.
You should do it, JJ. JJ is a great impressionist. JJ is a great impressionist. Do it, JJ. Do it.
What am I doing?
You're doing bathing in the, what is it? Bathing in the mines of...
Bathing in the mines of the Mandalore.
her elongated she is terrific. She is absolutely, Emily Swallow is terrific in that role. Really great.
But to get to the point, because I like to ramble, it's just everything that related in those 2 episodes still has to do with Boba Fett. Seeing Luke Skywalker's journey as a teacher to Grogu, and the ultimatum, we can talk about that later, I don't know, the ultimatum that he gives to Grogu, it still relates back to Boba Fett, because he had, like, Luke Skywalker is the person who put Boba Fett in the Sarlacc pit. Like, he was the reason he was there. So that's the reason Boba has such a connection to Tatooine, is because the Tusken Raiders. So ultimately, it all links back, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, yes. So what you're trying to say is the 2 episodes were seemingly random, but they weren't random. They were actually part of telling the cohesive story that they're telling.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that the strongest parts of this series were the Mandalorian episodes, the return of the Mandalorian, and then the next episode with Grogu and Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano, who returned as well.
That shocked the crap out of me.
Same.
Yeah, yeah, I was surprised to see that as well. The other most interesting storyline, and something that I wish they would have drawn out a little bit longer, was the dances with wolves in the Star Wars universe. Boba Fett living with the Tusken Raiders, I thought was really interesting. It was cool to see this, group of people in the Star Wars universe that gets a bad rap. That they have their own customs and culture, and Dave Filoni is so good at developing that kind of stuff out, developing that mythology. And obviously, he spent a long time with George Lucas. Performances aside, George Lucas is great at coming up with mythologies and that sort of thing. So he's had the hand of he's been the Padawan of George Lucas for so long. So he's developed that out great. So it was lovely to see, I think, that and get sort of an insight into a culture of Star Wars that we hadn't seen. I had a hard time caring about the Syndicate, their storyline, and even the finale. I think where it fell flat for me was just not caring about that part of the story. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But what do you think, JJ? What do you think? Do you think the 2 non-Boba episodes are the strongest part of the series, and why? And what other parts of the series stuck out to you that you enjoyed?
Well, yeah, they are, but we sort of were spoiled with great, Mando content for the past couple of years. So it not that automatically makes it better, but we were, I don't know. I was surprised when this show came about before Mando season 3. So when that happened in it, I was like, oh, okay, like it's all connected. That's cool. They're taking a very Marvel approach to all this, which is great. And that's being an interconnected galaxy, it should be. So that's cool. But at the same time, it's like it brought back like Amy Sedaris, who I've been in love with since Strangers with Candy. If you've ever seen that show, very obscure Comedy Central show from like early 2000. Katie, I don't even think you were born yet, but when that show came out, but no, I mean you were a wee one. But I rewatch that show frequently because it's just freaking hysterical. So seeing like her back, seeing Ahsoka and Luke, but even like like you said, the Armorer, like characters that were introduced through the Mandalorian. It's like, oh, okay, like we're getting back into that corner of the galaxy for a minute. And that felt good. That felt refreshing because there was a lot of stuff like they were talking about like the Pike Syndicate. And I was a little bit like, wait, who are they again? Like, because I thought he was against the Hutts, and now I'm a little confused. Who are these people? And why is spice always this big thing? Like whether it's Dune or or Star Wars, the spice mines of Kessel, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, whatever.
George Lucas directly ripped that off Dune, but
yeah. No, I know, but it just is funny, like oh, okay. But I really did like the I like the way you put that, the dances with wolves stuff with Boba. That I found much more interesting because as soon as he's like, I intend to lead through respect, not fear, I kept thinking about like Gus from Breaking Bad. It's like, yeah, it's like you're trying to tell this crime lord story, but you're doing it with a guy who's trying not to be a criminal in a weird way. So that I don't think that resonated as much as it could have, kind of like a, I don't know, like Sons of Anarchy, doing bad things for the good of other people kind of a thing. I didn't get that kind of vibe, but I think that's what they were trying to do. And that it's like, and I don't, we already have the Mandalorian for the bounty hunter stuff. So if Boba Fett doesn't want to be a bounty hunter anymore, cool. I just feel like they didn't get into, they never really got into the why, though. I guess because he was with the Tusken Raiders. I don't know. Or maybe I missed something. But anyway.
Yeah.
So Boba's almost 41, 42 here. Because he was born 32 BBY and he's an unaltered clone. So, and then the Book of Boba Fett takes place around 9 ABY, 10 ABY. The BY is Battle of Yavin.
Yeah.
So he's getting up there in age. He doesn't want to be a bounty hunter anymore. He's gotten beat up on Tatooine with the Sarlacc pit and then all the injuries he had. I loved the Dancing with Wolves and the Tusken Raiders. The fact that they've involved so much of the deaf culture in there with having the sign language and everything was really cool. Having the Morrison was able to put a lot of his, I'm going to butcher this, I'm sorry, Maori heritage. So for that, I feel like it was a great way to put in some people of color or like underrepresented communities is probably what I meant to say there. But it was really cool to see. I am probably once again in the minority where I think it would be nice to see other people get involved in the writing, producing of Star Wars, just to kind of give us something different. I don't think Filoni is the great god of Star Wars like everyone else thinks he is. I enjoy his Clone Wars stuff, but his live action stuff has left me underwhelmed. And so I think he does well with, again, throwing the hot takes, y'all.
Totally respected, by by the way. I really do.
Yeah,
I'm sort of like, wow, okay, but
it's not astoundment out of spite. It's astoundment out of, dang, Katie, get it? Like, you know what I mean?
Because I appreciate your honesty as well as you're not being a dick about it. I appreciate that. So I'm like, you're backing up your points as opposed to just being a jerk, which too many people online are just like, I don't like something popular because it makes me look cool, whereas you actually you have valid backing up. So
thank you.
Yeah,
that's why Snout gave me the Star Wars Alliance podcast, is because he heard me defend my Daredevil Netflix show sucks take on super civil servants, and he was like, yeah, I want her to host podcast for me. So that's how I got to be a podcast host. It's a fun fact.
Nice.
So I'm really excited for the Acolyte, as well as I think Deborah Chow's Obi-Wan Kenobi is, I think, going to be outside the realm of Favreau and Filoni. I still think they're going to have some input, and obviously it's nice to have a cohesive story and have everything line up. But fun fact, Filoni, being the god of Star Wars he is, failed to get canonically correct Mos Pelgo versus Freetown. In Aftermath, so Cobb Vanth, the Marshal, is a character from Aftermath, which is a trilogy of books by Chuck Wendig. And so he's there. Mos Pelgo / Freetown is obviously where he's at. So all of those references are built into those books. And in those books, which take place before The Mandalorian, Mos Pelgo is referred to as Freetown there. So we go to Mandalorian Season 2 and get Mos Pelgo all of a sudden, when this is after the Aftermath books. And then we come back to the Book of Boba Fett, and now it's Freetown. So 1138 on Twitter shouted out Wikipedia. They have a very nice reference to it where it's like, oh, in here it was Freetown, and then all of a sudden it was Mos Pelgo again, and then it was Freetown. So not everyone's going to be perfect, and I guess that's where it's just like, okay, who didn't catch this? So that snide remark at Filoni there, but
I will say, when it comes to Mos Pelgo or Freetown, when at the end of that first episode of Mandalorian Season 2, when he gives up the armor to Timothy Oliphant, who is a gorgeous human being.
Yes, he is.
And he's like, yeah, I love this.
Also from Modesto, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, he's like,
and
yeah,
a Vanderbilt. Sorry.
That's all right.
Fun facts.
When he's like, yeah, I love this armor, but I love this town more, so I'm happy to give it up. I'm just like, really? It's just a bunch of crappy buildings. You love this town? This town sucks. Tatooine sucks. Whatever. I'm sorry. It's a joke I've made to myself a few times.
A lot of that history is built into the Aftermath books, which, by the way, I don't recommend if you want to dive into Star Wars. So
it's like, well, it's all there. Don't read it, but it's there.
If you're going to read a Star Wars book, there is a million better books out there.
Oh, yeah.
Or comics, whatever your jive is. There's a million better places to start than the Aftermath books. They're all terrible. So Chuck Wendig is cool, but yeah, those were not the first books to get in canon Star Wars, like after Disney bought. So feel free to tweet me if you're looking for Star Wars book recommendations. We'll get you figured out. But I would recommend reading the Wikipedia page to get the history on Cobb Vanth. That's what I was trying to say.
Nice. Yeah, fun facts. Georgia Lucas is from Modesto. Sorry, this is like my randomness. It's fine. Georgia Lucas is from Modesto. Timothy Oliphant is from Modesto. So those two worlds kind of collided there. He got to be a part of a Star Wars project. It's pretty cool. Jeremy Renner is also from Modesto. And Jeremy Renner and Timothy Oliphant went to the same high school. And I think Timothy Oliphant was a senior when Jeremy Renner was a freshman. So that's an interesting fun fact. So hopefully we'll see Jeremy Renner in a Star Wars project in the future, because that seems necessary.
Every time you say Modesto, all I can think about is the beginning of Scream, the new Scream, because that's where. Have you seen it?
Does it take place in Modesto?
No, it's where Jack Quaid and Melissa Barrero's characters are at the beginning of the movie, and then they go back to Woodsboro. Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's just because I remember like thinking like oh, that's kind of a random spot, but I think Woodsboro is a fake town. Like I don't think it exists.
I've got to tell you, Modesto is weirdly like it is a nothing place. There's nothing going on there. I love my people back in Modesto, but I'm glad I don't live there anymore. But let me tell you, it is weirdly it's like the intersection of the universe. So many people I meet when they find out that I grew up there are like all of a sudden like, you're from Modesto? And then they'll say, did you know George Lucas is from Modesto? And I'm like, yes, I do. Of course I do. It's what American Graffiti was all about. Was Modesto. But yeah. I'm totally intrigued by all of the interesting history that Katie shared with us about Freetown.
Freetown, yeah.
Yeah, really, really interesting. I read some of the comics of the Aftermath. I read the one with Poe Dameron's mom and Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
That was interesting. Yeah. Speaking of Luke Skywalker. Yeah. Speaking of Luke Skywalker, should we talk a little bit about the Jedi Order? I just want to set this up and preface this by saying there is a group of fans on Twitter, on social media, who are, I would say, Last Jedi stans. Now, I just want to open this by saying I did not hate The Last Jedi. I liked it overall. I thought it was a decent Star Wars movie. Maybe that's a hot take. I did not love it. I didn't think it was as good as The Force Awakens. But you know, I liked it overall. And obviously, I think that the haters of that film are super annoying. Like, that goes without saying. But there has developed online a group of Last Jedi stans that are equally annoying to me as a Star Wars fan, because they will say things like The Mandalorian Season 2 or The Book of Boba Fett goes against what Rian Johnson's vision for Luke Skywalker. And I'm like going, Ryan, I'm sorry, Ryan John. First of all, it doesn't. And I'll explain this in a second. But second of all, Ryan Johnson didn't create Luke Skywalker. I'm sorry. Like, he was a director of one film in a franchise, and it had split reception. I thought it was a pretty good Star Wars movie. A lot of people didn't like it. And Ryan Johnson doesn't own Luke Skywalker. That being said, I think you see in the Book of Boba Fett, you see the seeds of Luke Skywalker's failure in this show. And the seeds of failure are in rather than starting a new Jedi Order based on the lessons learned from the previous generation, he basically reestablishes the old Jedi Order with a lot of the old sort of rigid ways of their philosophy, of their religion, basically. And the interesting thing about that is, in this story that they're telling, obviously the Mandalorians are the complete opposite of the Jedi in a lot of ways. So what did you guys think of that? And I think this is most personified in Luke laying out the little chainmail shirt made of Beskar, which was adorable, and Yoda's lightsaber, and basically telling Grogu, you have a choice. You can choose one or the other. You can choose a life of attachment with and honor and duty and loyalty to one another with the Mandalorians, or you can choose a life of detachment and the ways of the Force with the Jedi. And it's just very interesting to me. To me, this actually sets up The Last Jedi. Do you guys agree with that? That the turn that happens in The Last Jedi?
I'll let JJ speak first, because I have a lot to say about this.
It's funny that you say that, because I definitely agree that him going back to the old ways was the wrong way to go. Because if the old ways had worked, they wouldn't have failed so spectacularly in Revenge of the Sith. But what I'm thinking about as you were talking, Josh, is what's interesting is Anakin's view on the Jedi in Episode 2. Like I said, I don't think there's a bad Star Wars movie, and I think Anakin had it right, but nobody listened to him. Which was, he says, compassion is forbidden, but attachments are forbidden. But you could say we are encouraged to love. And I like that he had this mindset, like, well, I can see the loopholes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we back? Am I back?
Yeah, yes. You're back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like Anakin could see through the loopholes, and that's why he wanted to marry Padme. And I think he kind of had it right. And I think Luke, just going back to the old ways, was the wrong way to go. But I will say, just from a fan point of view, like, just seeing Luke again, like a really good CGI young Luke with little Yoda on his back, that was pretty dang cool.
It was really cool. They need to get Mark Hamill to do the voice of Luke Skywalker. I'm sure he could figure it out. He's a good voice actor. Yeah. And Slash, they've got technology to fix it, but the AI voice it threw me off a little bit.
A little weird,
yeah, a little
this
weird.
Time, so
yeah, well that's good. Katie, you said you have a lot to say. I'm really excited to hear with all the hot takes you've been spitting out tonight. I'm on the edge of my seat now to hear this one.
So yes, I do believe it flows in line with The Last Jedi, because he's the legend Luke Skywalker right here. So he doesn't have anyone to coach him through making these decisions for the Jedi. He just sees the Jedi texts. He knows what Yoda taught him. He knows what Ben taught him, and that was about it. So he doesn't know any better way to do it. And so I think it's a matter of growth to seeing it. I think that's why you get the Luke like with his lightsaber over Ben at the end, because he's like, crap, I let Ben have attachments to Leia and Han, and now I'm getting all these visions about him turning to the dark side. What the heck am I supposed to do? Like, this is my fault. I let him have these. So I think that's kind of where his thought process was in that mindset. So I think this choice where he loses his first student of his academy, which, by the way, is the academy that we see burn in The Last Jedi. They did say that officially. So when he loses this first student, I think it sets him on a different path where he's like, okay, maybe I need to adjust this, because the legend Luke Skywalker, referencing, he makes a lot of decisions for the future of the Jedi Order and goes, we can't fall back on the ways the Jedi Order was in the time of the Republic, because I would lose all these students who have built attachments to their kids, their mom and dad, their husband, their wife, and so he would lose generations in that method of dividing themselves from attachment. And I think one of the big things in the High Republic is that I'm reading, it's the Midnight Horizon book by Daniel Jose Older, and there's this quote, and it's such a good quote where it describes what non-attachment is supposed to be, and it's but emotions couldn't be mastered, Canton knew. The very idea of mastering something like a feeling seemed so ego-driven and reckless. Neither could emotions become the masters of a Jedi. But there were more than those two simple options. It's balance. It's all about balance here. And so I think that's what leads us into The Last Jedi, Luke. And I really hope that we get to see a Tales of the Jedi that has been rumored, where we get Luke Skywalker, because Luke Skywalker's why I got into Star Wars. I will always love seeing him on screen. I'm never gonna deny that. But I don't want CGI Luke. I think if they're gonna use him and use him to the effect that they are, they just need to get over panties being in a wad and recast. Because I'd like to see emotions. Yes, the double that they're using for the body placement in the scenes is also a very good lookalike, and he's an actor, so he could definitely do it. He looks very much like him. So I think there's a lot of options. It does fall in line with The Last Jedi. And
Mark Hamill has given his blessing to a recast too.
Yeah. And
yeah.
What's funny is Mark Hamill, he used to do this thing in May where he would go through each day of the month and May the 1st be yada yada yada. And he would say for the 9th after Rise of Skywalker, he said, May the 9th be the last time I play Luke Skywalker. And he was actually involved in scenes, they used his body language and then duplicated it with the double, but he just doesn't do the voice, and the double has kind of learned his body language, so he wasn't involved in Book of Boba Fett. But I just I lost my point there somewhere along the line, but I think it lines up with The Last Jedi. It was so cool getting to see Luke and Ahsoka interact. I know.
Yes.
There's not a lot of people happy with Rosario Dawson's casting because of the transphobic things that she's done. Reportedly, obviously, Albert innocent until proven guilty, but just it's so good. I've always wanted to see that happen, and especially with Hayden Christensen joining the Ahsoka show. It's gonna be so cool. So
yeah,
who knows? Yeah. Luke could pop up in Ahsoka now. So
yeah. No, it's it is really cool, and I think that the one thing I think Rian Johnson didn't go far enough in The Last Jedi. That's my criticism of it. I think that a lot of fans didn't want him to go where he went. I wanted him to go further. I wanted him to end on Rey turning to the dark side. That would have, or seemingly turning to the dark side, taking Ben's hand. I think that would have been a really epic ending and would have had fans talking for 2 years. What's going to happen?
They're still freaking talking. So
yeah, exactly. But what's going to happen? It would have set up anticipation and what does that mean? I think that the moment but the other thing that I think that didn't necessarily go the way that it could have been as well, is when Luke lifts up his lightsaber against Ben, and wants to kill him, or has it in his sense to kill him. That is supposed to be the I am your father twist of The Last Jedi. That is, but Luke Skywalker created Kylo Ren. That's supposed to be the big twist, of the film. And I don't feel like Ryan made that land as much as it should have. But clearly in that moment, Luke is thinking, what am I doing? I'm killing my own nephew. I'm about to kill my own nephew for what? Because he's turning to the dark side. So I think Luke has these realizations that, maybe the Jedi Order is not as virtuous as we made it out to be. And that's why he ends up the way that he is in The Last Jedi, just dejected and disillusioned by it all.
The argument I always made for Luke in The Last Jedi is, look at his teachers. His teachers were Ben Kenobi and Yoda. And what did they do when they failed? They ran away. He's sort of just doing what he's learned. And again, it's so him saying it's time for the Jedi to end. And I totally agree with you, Josh, that I wish Rian Johnson had gone further, because what I was hoping for was okay, so we're not calling them Sith Lords anymore. They're the Knights of Ren. Okay, so that means we're not going to call them Jedi anymore. It's going to be The Last Jedi, and then the next one will be something else. And that's not
maybe
really the way they went.
Maybe Skywalkers.
Maybe. I don't know. I just was.
So
either way, I was like, I think I get where they're going, but they didn't really go where I thought they were going to go. Not as far as I thought they should have gone, I should say.
So, fun fact, Skywalker is actually a word the Chiss use, which is Admiral Thrawn's species. They use Skywalker as their navigator. So they don't have Navi computers. They have young kids who are able to navigate through hyperspace, and basically just sit there and kind of navigate around things as they come up with it. And those kids eventually lose that ability into their teens. So Thrawn actually meets Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars and goes, Skywalker, that's interesting. And then they meet and everything. So I thought Rey taking Skywalker was a cool feature. I would disagree that Luke created Kylo Ren. I think that was the catalyst that moved everything along, because Sidious and Snoke were both there in the back of Kylo, in the back of Ben's mind, going, oh, okay, you really want to do this? Because the way Sidious needed a new host, according to the dark side, was for somebody to strike him down in anger. That was the Sith key to immortality there. So that's why Sidious in Return of the Jedi is good, strike me down with all your anger. He has to be killed out of a good portion, which is why Rey doesn't get taken over at the end of Rise of Skywalker, is because she's doing it for a good purpose and doesn't have any anger in her heart. So for me, Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker are two of my most favorite Star Wars movies. I don't like how much nostalgia J.J. Abrams brought into The Force Awakens, but it just wasn't a cohesive trilogy. So it's my least favorite trilogy, but it has two of my most favorite Star Wars movies involved. So
I totally respect that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I think that's a good take. That's a good take, Katie. I did want to talk. I did tease this on Twitter, so I feel like I do need to talk about it. It can be our last topic. I know I'm keeping you a little bit longer. But something that I want to discuss is I have a theory about The Mandalorian. And it's a very interesting one, and it's well, I think it's interesting. Nobody else might think this is interesting. Here is my theory. I don't think that The Mandalorian in the title of the show is Din Djarin. I think The Mandalorian is Grogu. And I think this is his origin story. So I think Grogu is going to be a Mandalorian. And he's also going to have training in the Force. and I think he's going to wear Mandalorian armor and yield a lightsaber. Discuss. Whoever wants to pick that up, but that's my theory.
That's really interesting, and one I never would have thought of. Real quick, end of or finale of Book of Boba Fett, when he does the shirt pull, shows that he's got the armor on. I was like, that's Toby as Spider-Man. Like, the exact same thing in No Way Home. So you going into battle just as a cool youth pastor, or but no, I really like that theory, and it lines up with that ultimatum that Luke gave to Grogu, which I really sat there going, dude, like you're talking to this child, like of course he's gonna pick the Mandalorian. Like I knew that right away. I was like, it didn't even need spoilers. I was like, that's it. It seemed silly, and you just got to wonder that Luke is just sitting there going, man, I really screwed that one up, didn't I? really screwed the bantha on that one. Trying to use Star Wars language. But no, I like what you're saying, and I probably need to rewatch just but I like that just to like cement it for me. But I dig that. I dig where your head's at.
When I tweeted this, when I tweeted, I have a theory about when I tweeted the Mandalorian ? And I've got a theory. And then I posted this like fan art of Grogu as an adult wearing Mandalorian, like a mix of Mandalorian armor and Jedi fatigues, with like a lightsaber, wearing like with Din Djarin's Beskar on his shoulder, and stuff like that. So yeah, Katie, what do you think of my theory? Am I off? Am I totally off here?
So while I think that Book of Boba Fett is Mandalorian season 2.5, because it wasn't marketed as Mandalorian season 2.5, I don't know, because Star Wars marketing kind of sucks at publishing their own things. I mean, who releases the release date for their next show the day of the season finale of their latest show? Like, you took over all of the hype for that show. Anyways, not the point. There is a great issue by Charles Soule. That's a comic. It's Star Wars 20 in the latest run. And it's so good. Luke Skywalker meets Elzar Mann, who's a member of the High Republic storytelling that's being done. And Elzar basically says, hey, the Jedi have always evolved to be what they need to be for that era. And he's like, but you also don't have to walk the path of being a Jedi. There are dozens of other sects out there that use the Force still, but the Jedi has always been a way to strive for using the Force for good. And then it's like, we'll be here if you need us. And then you see like Avar Kriss, Elzar Mann, Qui-Gon Jinn. I think you see Obi-Wan too. But it's a good interpretation of kind of what I think is going to happen. I still think it's difficult to say with Grogu, because if they had marketed this as Mandalorian season 2 or season 3, the Book of Boba Fett, and gone with it like that, I think you could be right. But there are going to be people who go, oh, this is the Book of Boba Fett. I don't need to watch that because it's the Book of Boba Fett. And they're going to look and go into Mandalorian season 3, which is supposed to release in December of this year, and go, wait, didn't Grogu leave to go with Luke Skywalker? What is he doing back? And then going to have to try and figure out what happened. And so you're missing a key portion of Grogu's story and Din Djarin's story when you get this. Another fun fact, the Mandalorian, the title of the ruler of Mandalore in Legends is actually Mandalore. And they were differentiated by being called like Mandalore the Warrior, Mandalore the Vicious, whatever you want to think of. There was a person with that. So when they say the Mandalorian, I think they're going along the lines of restoring Mandalore. but also trying to figure out like, oh, okay, Thrawn is now the big bad of the universe. So I was really surprised we did not get like a Thrawn thing in here. It was just like, here it is. And Ahsoka taking a break, like her being here causes me to question when her episode in Mandalorian season 2 actually comes in, because a lot of people said the Mandalorian season 2 episode takes place before the epilogue in Rebels when she goes to get Sabine. So it's like, okay, wait, did you just take a break from Finding Ezra? Like, okay, where is this at? So anyways, so I could definitely see Grogu wearing the chainmail, because he's not going to be decked out in a full Beskar gear. I mean, they'd have to do all sorts of different things to try and make that work. Plus, Jaren no longer has access to somebody who creates Beskar armor. So it could be interesting to see. I think he will end up wielding a lightsaber at some point or another. But I think Bo-Katan is still set in the mindset of, oh crap, I brought this curse on Mandalore because I didn't win the Darksaber in combat. And I think Jaren is still set on, okay, you have to win it in combat, and I won it in combat, and I don't want to fight Grogu. So I don't think he's going to end up wielding the Darksaber. He may end up wielding something else. We may see Luke Skywalker return and go, you know what? Here you go. Because the Kyber crystal not manufacturing, but where they found Kyber crystals, it is actually Starkiller base in The Force Awakens. So all of the Kyber crystals were taken for use in the Death Star. And then I also believe they found the remnants and used it in Starkiller base. So Kyber crystals are a rarity, is basically what I'm trying to say. So you've got to kind of figure out, where are you going to get that Kyber crystal? So is Luke going to hand it to him?
I just want to jump in, and for the uninitiated, Kyber crystals are the power source of lightsabers, for those who don't know the mythology.
I want to interject real quick and say that if Din Djarin is to be the ruler of Mandalore, his title would be Mandalore the Daddy. So,
oh, that's a good one.
That's funny. JJ always coming in for the joke, man. What is it that I wanted to say? Oh, I did want to just, sorry, I know I said last thing. I have one more thing. If you guys don't mind. Cad Bane and Boba Fett. For me, not having watched the Clone Wars, it was a bit like the whole thing of Cad Bane and Boba Fett having a history, I had no clue about. And so coming into this and them setting this up, like this was supposed to be a big deal, Cad Bane and Boba Fett reuniting, I had no idea that was a big deal as it was supposed to be, but it felt like it needed to be. So what I would have loved to have seen, and I know that they can't, you don't want to go in and repeat what the shows have already done, because you've got a lot of people who have watched those animated series. But I would have loved to have seen an additional episode between the first appearance of Cad Bane and the finale that gave some backstory about Boba and Cad Bane. Maybe it's a flashback, and that's the kind of thing that you can do in TV, and it makes sense. So I would have loved to have seen that kind of more established. So when that moment happens within the Mandalorian itself, within the Book of Boba Fett itself, it feels like a bigger moment within itself rather than the whole universe. But Katie, as you mentioned, this is the MCU-ification of the Star Wars universe. So one of the weaknesses of the MCU is sometimes things come up in those movies that happened in a whole nother not a previous movie, but a whole completely different franchise. So that is, and by franchise I mean character. So that is the we want these shared universe, but that's the drawback of them is that sort of thing. But what do you guys think of that? Do you think, having seen the Clone Wars and some of that storyline, did that interaction between Cad Bane and Boba Fett really hit home for you guys?
I think it did. It was a big moment, and I think Robert Rodriguez framed it really well in the way he chose how to position everybody, and the pause that they take where Boba's like, oh, it's done. Like, and he kills him with the gaffy stick that he made to signify his change into a new life. So to me, the kill of Cad Bane, while yes, it sucks he was only here for 7 minutes, because that's what Matt said. Matt was like, we brought him in for 7 minutes. You still got Andor, and you still got Obi-Wan Kenobi, where Cad Bane can appear in the next year. So he may not be done. But Cad Bane was getting to the end of his life, because Duros typically lived to 70 and Cad Bane was 71. But there's so much history between Boba Fett and Cad Bane, not even just in Clone Wars, but going into the comics, where Cad Bane actually has history with Jango Fett when he's a bounty hunter. So it was a really cool moment to see Boba take his past and kind of knock it out all at once. And it's a great move to see Boba move into a new future as the leader of a Gatra and as a crime lord versus a bounty hunter.
Yeah. JJ, what are your thoughts on it?
I think I think I would have preferred if Cad Bane had shown up earlier. Then that rivalry could have been both reestablished and established more for the people who weren't aware of the history and people who are. I'm sorry, that sentence took me like 8 weeks to say. But because I when he showed up, I was like, oh, because I thought there were 8 episodes and there's only 7, so I was kind of surprised when like the finale. I was like, what? Did I miss an episode? But so because I thought that if you're gonna, especially if like the Star Wars, I think this actual like Star Wars account was touting him as like Boba Fett's like greatest enemy or something like that. I'm like, okay, but I'm not getting that here. I know that because I've seen Clone Wars, but I don't know that here. But either way, I thought, at the very least, I thought he looked amazing, and props to them for bringing Corey Burton back, because Corey Burton as a voice actor can do no wrong. So that
and
was
also
really...
on that note, boo to all the Twitter users who are saying that we fixed Cad Bane. You did not fix Cad Bane. He looked fine.
No, I did not like that at all. I don't like it when people do stuff like that. Like,
well,
I've seen.
Okay. So just to clarify for those who are unaware, Screen Rant took what the person did and said they fixed his appearance. The person was actually trying to see if he could make him look more like the Clone Wars person. He understood and said that in the video where it happened, and was like, I understand you can't always match up live action to animation. Things aren't the same. And was like, but this is potentially how he could look if you were able to do those things. And so the guy had good intentions, and Screen Rant, which I've tried to apply for, so I won't like completely bash Screen Rant, because like I want to get paid to write. But Screen Rant took that and clickbaited it. So that's
right.
That's the history there.
Yeah, that's got it. Sorry to interrupt you, JJ.
No, I just think that if we should have gotten a little bit more of him, and I think it would have, but I did like that when he was there, it was impactful. Like, as soon as he showed up outside of Freetown, I was like, well, he's dead. Like, Cop's dead. Like, he's gonna kill him. Like, not only no way would they bring in Cad Bane just to kill him off immediately, but like he has to have an entrance. He has to mean something. And I love the old Western style that they were doing. That they kept like like throwing his jacket back, and like his fingers like twitching in front of his gun. I was like, okay, like that's cool. So I dug all of that. I just was really it's sort of like Boba Fett, the book of Boba Fett to begin with. It's like I'm glad we have what we have, so it's better than not having it. I just wish there was more of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with that said, I think that's that's a good place to wrap up this conversation. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. You've been so generous with your time. And I just want to do one more round of plugs. I know we did them at the beginning, but one more round of plugs. If you've enjoyed this conversation and you want to follow Katie and JJ, where can people find you guys?
I'll let JJ go first this time.
You can find me at 4 Comic Junkies, mostly on Twitter, though I do have Facebook and Instagram, although those are usually just to promote the podcast. 4 Comic Junkies, which is FOR Comic Junkies, because it's inclusive. We want you all to be a part of this. Pretty soon I'll announce it here for the first time on an actual show. Going to be launching the Spider-Man Book Club in April.
Oh, yes.
Which I've said on Twitter, but now officially on a show that people will listen to. So I hope you check that out come April.
Yeah, and you've invited me on the show, but I told you I need homework.
Yeah.
Because I haven't read many Spider-Man comics, even though I know a lot about the character from the animated series. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that show. I want to just listen to it so I can read more Spider-Man comics because I just enjoy it so much. But what about you, Katie? Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's at Slice of Katie. Those are my personal accounts. I'm always down to talk about anything. But I am trying to limit my social media usage. So if I don't get to you immediately, there's a reason. My 2 shows you can find on Twitter. My first one is Slice of Film, and that is on Twitter. It's at Slice of Film 1. We've got a good backlog in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Podcast Network, which is the podcast network I'm a part of. So you can go listen to those backlog of episodes. You can find most of those on my personal website. It's slicerscribbles.com. And my other podcast is Star Wars Alliance. Obviously, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I threw a lot of facts at y'all tonight. I appreciate y'all listening to me ramble.
Oh my gosh, it was great.
Loved it.
That show is Star Wars Alliance on Twitter. It's at Star Wars Alliance without the A in the wars. Very important. Don't forget it. And that show has its own personal podcast feed. It does still post episodes on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Podcast Network. But you can find that by just searching Star Wars Alliance on your favorite podcatcher. And I don't know when this is going to air, but since we're live right now, you have one more week to enter our giveaway for a Star Wars Legends Old Republic omnibus that is out of print. So we are giving that away for a rate/review on a podcatcher of your choice. We're just looking for a DM so we know how to contact you with a screenshot of the review or a rate, because some places only allow you to rate. So we appreciate it. So yeah, and the Geek Ultimate Alliance Podcast Network, you can find that on podcatchers. But it is on Twitter where you can find all of our 8 shows. We publish a show every day of the week. And that is on Twitter. It's GUA Pod Network. So
awesome.
That is all my plugs.
There you go. All the plugs. I will do a personal plug here. Next week, I'm going to be joined by the guys of the Vigilante 1939 podcast. The Nicks, as I call them, Nico Caruso, and Nick Zednick. We're going to be discussing Peacemaker. And then coming up on March, it's the Tuesday after the Batman comes out. Right now, as of now, I'm going to have some guests on to be announced. We don't have a firm lineup yet, but we're going to be discussing the Batman. So looking forward to both of those. It's going to be really good. Make sure you tune in. I'm going to be way more consistent, guys, this time. So yeah, looking forward to future podcasts. Thank you so much, Katie and JJ, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.